What's up everyone, Master Fox here today. So I thought I'd do a November 2015 format investment guide and kind of the cards that you want to be looking out for. Basically a market watch, but something more for those people who want to look to see what cards they want to buy before prices go up. So starting off, I have the first category of cards as a safe category. So in the safe category, basically these cards are pretty good to invest in. They're not too expensive right now, but I predict them to go up a lot in the near future just because of the way the format's going to shift. So the first card is YRETAP. I think this is an obvious start for our guide, seeing as the future is teeming with powerful counter traps. We've already got Grand Horn of Heaven. It hasn't made that significant of an impact, but I think in certain decks it will in the future. And of course, if you've been keeping up with the metagame and what's coming soon, we'll see a card called Solemn Notice, which is basically a Black Horn of Heaven fused with a Divine Wrath tied to a 1500 life point cost. So in order to counter these counter traps, obviously you need a good card of your own, and YRETAP fits that bill very well. And I think this card is going to go up a lot. Right now I think it's hovering around $4 to $5. And seeing as it was in Dragons of Legend, which is out of print now, it should spike up pretty soon. Soul Charge recently spiked up to around $9 too as well. I'm not really sure about that because I remember it being $5 for a long time, and then all of a sudden it jumped up to $9, $10. So our next card on this investment guide in the safe category is Cashback. I'm sure not too many of you have heard of this card, but along the lines of YRETAP, this card will be able to answer cards like Solemn Notice and a whole host of Cosmo cards. You guys probably haven't heard of it before, so I'll summarize it here. The gist of the card is that it's a counter trap that can negate the effect of any card, be it spell, trap, or monster effect that requires the payment of life points. This obviously includes cards like Solemn Notice, Farm Girl, Wicked Witch, etc. etc. So I think this will be a really good side card in the future and a solid thing to pick up right now because it's only like 80 cents per card. And I could see it jumping up a lot higher in the future. Next on our list of safe investments is Star, SERAPH, Sovereignty, and SCEPTER. Cyber Dragon Infinity is guaranteed to be out soon, coming in Breakers of Shadow, and these two cards will be really good just because of that. I have no clue why the price on Sovereignty has actually been tanking recently, going from around $8 to I think around $6 now, even lower than $6, maybe $5.50. But anyways, I picked up 2 playsets of both of these guys. They will definitely be very much playable come Breakers of Shadow. Next we have Cyber Dragon Nova. I know, it's probably too late now for this card, and I think it's already peaked, but this card is definitely still a good investment. Definitely, at least for this format, because of Cyber Dragon Infinity. I don't know how long Konami is going to let Cyber Dragon Infinity run around though, so Cyber Dragon Nova might be a good temporary investment and then sell it off before the end of the format. Next up is Chaos Trap Hole. This card has mainly been very important because it beats out cards like Denko Sekka, and also now it'll be able to beat out Farm Girl as well. Although it won't gain any further prominence in Breakers of Shadow because even though Traptrix Rafflesia is coming out, it doesn't really synergize with the other card because it's a counter trap. But still, right now it's hovering around $2 to $3, but I think it's a very good side deck choice. And then for another safe investment card, we have Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. This card has already seen a sort of price spike. It started around 80 cents or so, I remember before the announcement of Traptrix Rafflesia, and now it's almost jumped up to $2. But it pretty much is a very powerful card because it has the ability to counter monster effects without targeting. So mainly it's very good against Cosmo cards and Magispectors, which are either immune to targeting or very resilient to targeting, like in the case of Cosmos. And then we also have a mention of any other trap hole cards that I may be forgetting that synergize with Traptrix Rafflesia. The main card to think about here is Time Space Trap Hole because it counters decks like Magispectors and other Pendulum decks really well. These cards are going to get a nice buff with Traptrix Rafflesia once Breakers of Shadow comes out. There isn't really much to explain here. The plethora of trap hole cards will basically serve as a sort of Swiss Army knife of trap holes to counter whatever your opponent throws at you. Basically, first turn you make Traptrix Rafflesia, and then you counter anything your opponent might do using your trap holes from your deck. Then we have Mega CAIUS as well as any other Monarch cards that might be sort of expensive right now. So obviously in anticipation of the future Monarch cards and Monarch Structure deck coming up very soon in either January or February, Monarch cards that won't be in the deck, like Mega CAIUS presumably, should see a nice price increase by that point in time. So if you're planning to play Monarchs, getting the Monarch cards now is definitely a very safe investment. And then last but not least, for our safe investment cards, I think Burning Abyss as a whole deck is a very safe investment. This deck, in my opinion, is probably the best bang you're going to get for your buck this format. It's still a very solid deck. The unfortunate part about Burning Abyss, though, is the meta that we're in. It's not very conducive to Burning Abyss being a dominant threat because Magispectors as a whole deck basically counter Burning Abyss. Burning Abyss can't use any of their discard traps, Fire Lake doesn't work against Magispectors, and all of that just basically makes the matchup very terrible for Burning Abyss. Additionally, even in Cosmos, a card like Dark Destroyer is very difficult for Burning Abyss to get over. The only real options they have is using Terminus and boosting up a Dante to 3300 to run over the Dark Destroyer, or using Utopic Future, both of which are unwieldy options, which isn't really the best ideal situation for Burning Abyss, which is why I think it's going to have trouble this format, even though it's a very good deck overall. Once the meta sort of shifts a little bit, I think Burning Abyss will be able to take more of the meta pie. Then moving on to our second category, we have the really risky investments. These are where the risk is very high, but the reward is possibly also very high, much higher than the safe investments. Starting off, we have our two NEKROZ cards, NEKROZ of Valkyries and NEKROZ of BRIONAC. So at $20 a pop, Valkyries might be a very good steal if there's some magical way that NEKROZ are actually viable that most people aren't seeing right now. Going along with Valkyries, BRIONAC's price tanking to $10 could potentially also be a very solid investment if this NEKROZ deck does find a way to become viable. The low possibility of this, though, makes this investment far riskier than any of the other investments that I've mentioned before. Then we have Apex Avian. For the Pendulum Magician deck, Apex Avian is a very good card. The hype was very much set already though, so we've seen this card price pretty much peak already, but it may still even go higher if the Pendulum Magician deck proves to be that good. The highest that I've seen this card right now is around $25, but if you want to play Pendulum Magicians, I still think this card is a solid tech option to pick up now. It might go up even more in the future depending on how good Pendulum Magicians are. And then last but not least, we have ARCHFIEND EXCENTRICK. So this is a solid Pendulum card for basically any Pendulum deck. Mainly the deck that's concerned with this card is Pepe, or M&M as it's called in the OCG. I prefer to call it meme.deck, but that's just me. Anyways, I think this card has likely hit its max price, but it's still very possible that in the future it could be jumping up even higher. If in the future meme.deck, Pepe.deck, whatever you guys call it, is able to compete at an even higher level than Cosmos, ARCHFIEND EXCENTRICK might even jump up even higher than what it is right now. So it's a high risk investment because it might have hit its peak and it may be on its way going down. But if the deck proves to have such great dominance over Cosmos, ARCHFIEND EXCENTRICK will definitely go up in price. Then for my last category that I want to talk about is the long-term investment cards. Basically, there's only two cards in this category and they're kind of similar. Lavalval Chain and EXCITON Knight. These two cards recently became banlist brothers together, and I've always had an eye for banned cards that have a good chance of returning. In the past, I've invested in cards like Trishula, mainly because I had a feeling that it would just come back one day, and these two cards kind of fall in that similar category. Although the payoff is obviously a long-term investment, as I mentioned before. These would probably come off maybe 3 to 4 years, if not more in the future. Although I think stocking up on Lavalval chains now, even with a banlist return in 3 to 4 years, will still have a decent return because he'll likely spike up to around $10, which is what he was sitting at before he was hit, which basically doubles your profit. EXCITON Knight is largely the same way because its price is hovering somewhere between $12 to $15 now, and if it does come off the ban list within 3 to 4 years or any time after that, without a reprint, EXCITON Knight will probably shoot up to its old price somewhere between $40 and $45, which is basically triple the profit. Even though there's a low chance that it's going to profit you anytime soon, these are, after all, long-term investments, which basically are very safe as well because once these guys come off the ban list, you'll be guaranteed a massive profit. So that's pretty much it for this video. I kind of summarized just some very safe investments for the upcoming format, a couple of risky investments, and then two main long-term investments. Basically, if you guys kind of follow along with this and make your own investment strategies from this, a decent chunk of profit, maybe not purely monetarily, but in card value, just trading up and trading around. Because looking ahead will basically benefit you a lot when you kind of consider what's available now with how it will interact in the future. So that's basically all I have for this video. Tell me what you guys think in the comments section below. Give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you.